Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. It is conference championship weekend, which means teams have one last chance to make a good impression on the committee before they make their selections on Selection Sunday. And this week we have 6 great conference championship matchups. Usually we only have 5 games up here on the big board, but we're making an exception for this weekend, putting one extra game on there, and we're going to break down what we think are the 6 biggest conference championships coming in to this very, very exciting weekend and big weekend, not only for bowl berths and potential New Year's Six bowl berths, but also the college football playoff. And so we're going to kick things off and not delay it any further with the Pac-12 championship game, number 17 Utah and number 11 Washington. Now this game not having any really college football playoff implications whatsoever, but certainly having New Year's Six bowl game implications. In this game, if you like defense, this is probably going to be the game for you. This is a game featuring the top 2 scoring defenses in the Pac-12. Utah allowing just 19.3 points per game on the year. Washington allowing just 16.5 points per game on the year. And both these teams have decent offenses. Not that they don't have solid offenses at all, but I'm very excited to see if they can shut each other's offenses down, because I've been very impressed with Washington, Jake Browning, Myles Gaskin, especially in their latest performance in the snow against Washington State. And then Utah coming in here without their starting quarterback in Tyler Huntley, without their starting running back in Zach Moss, having to start redshirt freshman Jason Shelley at quarterback and Armand Shine at running back. And so they've played phenomenally well over these past couple of weeks since those two both went down with injuries. And I can't wait to see how Utah does against this very, very difficult Washington defense. And if you look at it, back in week 3, these two teams met, and Utah was in that game, only losing to Washington 21-7. And that was back when Washington was still, obviously it was so early on in the season, still in the hunt for the college football playoff, before they lost to Oregon, before they lost to Cal, and obviously it was after they had lost to Auburn in the season opener, but were still in the hunt for that. And Washington was a team that we picked back in the summer to go to the Pac-12 championship and make it. I believe we had Arizona going from the South Division. Obviously that didn't go our way. We expected a little bit more out of Kevin Sumlin and Khalil Tate. But we did say that Utah was going to be the toughest team to go up against Arizona, maybe the second best team in that division. They are making their first appearance there, as we mentioned, winning the Pac-12 South title for the very, very first time. So this game, like I said, it's going to be very strong defensively, I feel like, and I'm more interested. I always talk about offense. That's kind of where my mind goes. I'm a big offensive-minded guy. I love watching quarterback battles. I love watching high-scoring games, as many of us, I think, do. But Utah's number 5 ranked rush defense in the entire nation. I'm very excited to watch that go up against Myles Gaskin, who has really emerged, which we knew with the talent that he had at Washington, but has emerged in recent weeks, especially last weekend against Washington State, where he rushed for 170 yards. And last time they played Utah back in week 3, he rushed for 143 yards. So can Utah shut him down and force Jake Browning, who has been a little sporadic this year, to win this game through the air? If so, maybe they have a chance of winning it, but I want to pick the Huskies to win their second Pac-12 championship in the past 3 years. And unfortunately, that will not get them to the college football playoff, but should get them a berth, I believe, in the Rose Bowl. So that will be huge for Chris Peterson and the Huskies. Moving down, the Big 12 Championship, a rematch. Number 14, Texas, and number 5, Oklahoma. This game back just a few weeks ago, back in October, one of the better games I felt of the entire year. Texas winning that game 48-45, allowing Oklahoma to battle all the way back, and as Gus Johnson said, Dicker, the kicker, getting the win for the Longhorns. This game has the chance once again to be a very huge shootout, obviously in part to Kyler Murray and the Sooners, who are averaging 50.3 points per game. But everybody criticizes the Oklahoma defense, and rightfully so. They're allowing 32.8 points per game and have allowed an average of 47 points or more, a little over 47 points over the past month for Oklahoma. That was 40 points to Kansas, over 50 points to West Virginia, over 40 points to Texas Tech. So that's the million-dollar question. Can Oklahoma's defense show up and shut down Texas and Sam Ehlinger, who's been playing extremely well and who had over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Oklahoma back in October? So if Oklahoma's defense can finally make some moves, which I think Lincoln Riley, hopefully will make those adjustments and have everything prepared for the Sooners. If they can do that, they will win this game. And then if Alabama takes care of Georgia, which we'll discuss here in a minute, Oklahoma should move into that 4th spot in the college football playoff. And as I mentioned, I'm an offensive-minded guy. Would set up a Tua Tagovailoa versus Kyler Murray showdown in the college football playoff. This game, as I mentioned, bigger for Oklahoma just because it has those playoff implications. Texas having 3 losses can't get there. In fact, it's just going to be impossible being number 14. Even if they beat Oklahoma by 50, there's just no way they're going to get into the college football playoff. But still big for them because, like I mentioned, it's a rivalry game. The Red River Showdown. It's the second time they're going to meet this year. So anytime you get to face off against your rival, that's huge. Texas is going to try to get this game and get to a New Year's Six bowl game, which I think they could clinch with a win over Oklahoma. But in the end, revenge is a dish best served in a conference championship game. I believe the Sooners get the win over the Longhorns in what will be another very, very close matchup. But I think Kyler Murray and them get their revenge in this one. Unfortunately, they won't be able to do any hooks down because that will result in a penalty. Of course it will. Memphis at number 8, Central Florida in the American Athletic Conference Championship. We could have put Boise State and Fresno State up here, but this game bigger to me on just for multiple reasons. And honestly, I think this game is going to be a little bit better than that Boise State Fresno State game, just because of the headlines surrounding this game and the history between these two teams. If you remember last year's American Athletic Conference Championship game, UCF winning that game 62-55 in double overtime. Earlier this year, UCF facing off against Memphis on the road in Memphis, coming down, I believe, 16 points, and winning that game 31-30 to keep their undefeated streak alive for this season and keep their enormous win streak alive dating all the way back to last season. So this game, once again, like Oklahoma, Texas, has a chance to be a shootout, but UCF going to be without McKenzie Milton. That's huge. Whenever you lose your star quarterback, that hurts so bad. And McKenzie Milton, thoughts and prayers still go out to him and his family, because it was a very, very gruesome injury that he suffered against South Florida, and he is a heck of a ball player. He's a heck of a quarterback, and it's just a killer for him, I know, not to be there with his team, and a killer for UCF to not have him out there on the field for this conference championship game. But Dario Mack Jr. is going to be the one that's going to have to come in and fill the shoes. He did a decent job for that coming in when he got hurt against South Florida. He's more of a runner, though, than a passer. He's not as strong of a passer as McKenzie Milton was. And I feel like UCF's going to rely more on their run game against Memphis than they would have relied on the pass had Milton been healthy. So you're still going to have Greg McCray. You're still going to have Adrian Killins. Very solid running backs for the Knights there. But going up against one of the better running backs in all of college football, and Darrell Henderson at Memphis, who has 1,699 yards on the year and 19 touchdowns, leading the FBS, I believe, in both of those categories. Back in October when they faced off, he had 199 yards against UCF. So UCF's defense is going to have to step up big time to shut him down. Because, look, home field advantage, for me, is a big factor. But when not having your star quarterback, that plays a huge role. And Memphis is going to be able to pound it on UCF's defense. Can the Knights get the stops that they need and force Brady White to win this game through the air? Look, Brady White's no Paxton Lynch. He's no Riley Ferguson. He's not one of the better, in my opinion, quarterbacks that Memphis has had in recent years. But he's still getting the job done. He's still a very, very solid quarterback. But they're certainly going to rely more when you've got that talent in Henderson. If they force Brady White to win this game through the air, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think Central Florida wins this game in what will be another very close one, and keeps there. And with that game, will clinch a spot in a New Year's Six bowl game. And if some crazy chaos ensues, could keep those playoff hopes alive. But that's extremely, extremely doubtful. I think the FPI is giving them a 0.3% chance to make the playoff. But, there is still a chance, as many would say. Moving down, the SEC Championship, by far the biggest game of this entire weekend. Number 1, Alabama. Number 4, Georgia, facing off in Atlanta. And I don't have to tell it, everybody's repeating on every network you see. It is a national championship rematch. Yes, we get it. That was the game where Tua Tagovailoa emerged and allowed the Crimson Tide to come back and beat Georgia in just a phenomenal fashion in overtime, 26-23 or 26-20, whatever the final score was of that game. These two teams extremely even in my eyes, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. Listen to these stats. Bama averaging 49 points per game on the offensive side of the ball, just giving up 13.8 defensively. Georgia averaging 40.1 points per game offensively and just allowing on defense 17.2 points per game. So these are very, very even squads here. Obviously, Alabama owning the edge at the quarterback position with Tagovailoa over Jake Fromm, who in my opinion is very underrated. He doesn't get a lot of credit for what he has done for this Georgia program, what he has done in recent years for the Bulldogs. I think he's going to have a decent game against Alabama, much like he did last time they met in the national championship game. But as we mentioned before, Georgia's going to have to shut down Tua Tagovailoa. They couldn't do it in that second half and into overtime in the national championship game. You know they're going to be out hungry for revenge, hungry to shut him down and show not that anything's been a fluke, because he's been by far the best player in all of college football, but just try to get revenge and redemption on the way things ended for them last year. But Georgia's averaging, allowing about 175 yards per game through the air. And Tua's averaging, almost 300 yards per game through the air. Something's going to give there, and I think the edge is once again going to go to Tua Tagovailoa, arguably the best player in college football and who should be the Heisman frontrunner. If they do that, though, if they shut him down, they'll have to win with Damian Harris. And I'm excited to see Georgia's run game, too. Can Georgia get their run game going against a very solid Alabama defense? That's something we're going to have to wait and find out. And as we mentioned, we have Georgia here. If they can pull off the win against Alabama, Alabama should once again stay in the college football playoff race, should stay in the college football playoff, just dropping from first to third, first to fourth. Expect this game to be very, very close. But in the end, I think the Crimson Tide get the win and ruin Georgia's college football playoff hopes, unfortunately, for this season. However, the Bulldogs will still go to a New Year's Six bowl game. Moving on to Clemson and Pittsburgh in the ACC Championship, not much to talk about here. Pittsburgh sitting there at 7-5, got killed by Miami, who's not even that good this year, 24-3 on the road. Yes, we know a couple years ago Pittsburgh went into Death Valley and upset the Tigers, and that still didn't derail their national championship that year. So anything's possible. We know that. We know anything's possible. But this is a very, very different Clemson team. And I know Clemson allowed about 600 yards of total offense to South Carolina last week. Allowed Jake Bentley to throw for over 500 yards against what was supposed to be one of the better defenses in the entire nation for Clemson. But nonetheless, Clemson should go in there and just derail the Panthers the whole way. This game should be over by the end of the third quarter, if not before then. I think Clemson's going to go in, take easy care of business. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Travis Etienne. I know they've got Kenny Pickett on the other end for Pittsburgh, but in the end, Clemson just has too much talent and too much speed for a Pittsburgh team that has played well, has won 4 straight against Duke, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest. But when you look at how they've performed in big games, such as Penn State, Central Florida, and Miami, then you can tell they got annihilated by both UCF and Penn State. They got annihilated by Miami, and they also lost to North Carolina, who only has 2 wins on the year. So I think Clemson goes in, takes easy care, solidifies himself a spot in the college football playoff, and we'll have to wait to see who their opponent will be in the semifinal game. In our final game, Big Ten Championship, number 21 Northwestern and number 6 Ohio State. Another intriguing matchup just because you've got 8-4 Northwestern here. You had 7-5 Pittsburgh, so it's not very often you see, more than 2 lost teams making their conference championship game. And we've got 2 of those this year in very major conferences. And you have to wonder where Northwestern would be had they done better in non-conference play, losing to Akron, losing to Duke, blowing a 17-point lead to Michigan. I know that being in Big Ten conference play. But nonetheless, where they could be, much higher than 21st, maybe in the hunt for the playoff, who knows. But Northwestern's defense has been phenomenal, allowing just 40 combined points over their past 3 games. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. The lone loss there coming to Notre Dame, who's number 3 in the entire nation right now. But Ohio State, beating Michigan, the number 4 team, 62-39 this past weekend. Dwayne Haskins going on a roll there, having 6 touchdowns. This game obviously bigger for Ohio State, who with a win here will still keep their playoff hopes alive, depending on what happens ahead of them with Oklahoma and the Alabama-Georgia game. I think if Ohio State wins this game, and everything goes the way we think it will, if Ohio State wins, Oklahoma wins, and Alabama wins, the committee will have to decide who to put in, the Buckeyes or the Sooners. I think in the end it will be the Sooners. That Purdue loss hurts Ohio State a lot, even though their strength of schedule and quality wins might be better than Oklahoma's. I just think in the end the edge is going to go to the Sooners, who still have quality wins of their own, with such as West Virginia. They got a win over Iowa State, who's ranked, and then they've got another win in there over Texas, assuming they beat them in the conference championship game. And they also have a better loss as well, losing to Texas compared to Ohio State's 29-point loss to Purdue. This game going to be huge. I'm excited to watch the quarterback matchup. These 2 teams don't meet very often, Clayton Thorson versus Dwayne Haskins. But if Ohio State plays the way they did against Michigan, this game, like the Clemson game, will be over very, very early. But if they don't, and the Northwestern defense shows up the way they have been the past couple of weeks, maybe they shut down Ohio State, slow them down, and make this a game late into the fourth quarter, maybe give the Buckeyes a little bit of a scare. And if they beat the Buckeyes, then, of course, chaos would ensue, and that's, of course, always what we love to see. But our conference championship picks, Washington winning the Pac-12, Oklahoma winning the Big 12, UCF winning the American, Alabama the SEC, Clemson the ACC, and Ohio State in the Big 10. And as always, I'd like to mention we did correctly predict the SEC championship and the Big 12 championship back in the preseason and correctly predicted a couple of the participants and the other ones just not nailing the exact matchup. But it's going to be a great weekend of college football, all starting with the Pac-12 championship and a couple of the other smaller conferences on Friday night and obviously carrying over late into Saturday, and then Selection Sunday, this Sunday, December 2nd. We will know who is in the college football playoff, who is in the New Year's Six bowl games, and all the other bowl games across the nation by the end of Sunday night, and you're not going to want to miss any of the action, once again, starting on Friday. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.